Hey, good morning, everybody. It's time for another Sunday morning devotional. I was out checking cows and putting out a little salt and mineral for the heifers before we went to church, and so I got thinking about salt. In Matthew 5, verse 13, Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he's referencing salt. He says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled by men." You know, when you start thinking about being salt, if you're like me, you go to how salt is used in food, in cooking, right? It enhances the flavor, it brings out other flavors and that sort of thing. And that is a good way to think about it. It is certainly relevant to our society today. You know, back in biblical times, salt was not pure sodium chloride like it is today. It was often mined from marshes or from evaporated seawater, and so there was lots of other impurities in it. So it was actually possible that over time, storing this salt with all this other stuff that's in with it, well, the sodium chloride itself could actually leach out, and therefore the salt wasn't as salty as it was, once before. At that point, what is it good for, right? You can sprinkle it on your food, but what good does it do? They also use salt for all sorts of other things. Since pretty much the beginning of time, people have been salting down meat to keep it edible longer. It slows down rot and decay, and it keeps your food good, for a longer period of time. Well, what do you do if the salt is leached out of that? You sprinkle this other stuff on there, and it doesn't really do you any good. So it is about preserving stuff as well. But I want to talk about how it was used in agriculture, how it is still actually used in agriculture. Back in Bible times, they were using salt basically as fertilizer. And I know that sounds kind of strange now because you think, well, if you use too much salt, if you go out and spread a field or your yard or whatever with a bunch of salt, it can actually sterilize the ground. And that is true. They used it for weed control as one of the things. If this helps you out, though, think of it this way. If you're familiar with liquid nitrogen fertilizer like 32%, or you're familiar with like 4600 dry nitrogen fertilizer, those are salts as well, right? Or if you go get your dicamba herbicide of choice and you read the label, there is a really good chance under ingredients it's going to say salt of dicamba. So think of it in those terms. But back then they were using salt basically as fertilizer. It was an improvement to the soil. It was an amendment to the soil. It would help pull out nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and other things that the plants could use. It helped the soil retain water better. If you put salt on certain soil types, it will help it increase its water holding capacity. They also used it for weed control. It can promote growth in certain types of plants. It can also prevent disease in certain types of plants. So it had a real agronomic importance to it. Do you ever wonder if us as believers and followers are to be the salt, if we're being put into a challenging situation to improve that situation? You've got a tough piece of dirt, you sprinkle a little salt on it, now maybe it holds water a little better. That was a challenging situation. Maybe we're being put into a challenging situation to help improve it. If you think of it this way, everybody goes through a tough time, through a challenging situation. Both believers and non-believers alike are going to go through that. As believers, what if that situation is partially about us, growing ourselves in maturity in our spiritual walk, helping us develop in our relationship with Jesus and with the Lord, learning perseverance through trials and that sort of thing. But what if the other side of that is we're being put into a challenging situation to help improve that situation? What if we are being called to help with weed control? What's going on around you that you don't feel is biblically correct, and what can we do to change that? Maybe we're being called to be fertilizer to help improve somebody else's situation. Maybe we're to help encourage growth by coming alongside a new believer and sharing scriptures that are important to us, or sharing our own situations and our own stories to help them grow in their walk. Maybe we're supposed to be an encouragement. Come along somebody who has been walking with the Lord for a long time and just say, hey, you are doing a really good job. Thank you for serving this way. Whatever it may be. We are not supposed to just exist in culture and exist in society. If you look at any little restaurant, cafe, anything, anywhere in any small town, there's a salt and pepper shaker on every table. You see it everywhere. You see salt everywhere. It is so common that sometimes we kind of forget it's there. But salt is not meant merely to exist. It's to improve the quantity of whatever it is you're putting it on. Same way, Christians, sometimes we just exist, but we're not meant to. We're supposed to be improving the situation around us. But if you take that salt shaker, that pepper shaker, you take those off that table at that restaurant and you get some fries and they're just kind of boring and you're looking for this salt, well, then you really notice it is missing. If we're not doing our part as believers, people will notice that is missing. They may not know what it is, they may not realize what it is, but it will be noticeable. And so my encouragement for you going forward this week is just look for different ways that you can inspire, that you can help slow the pace of decay, that you can help be an encouragement, that you can help fight off disease, that you can help pull out the weeds, or whatever it is that you're needing to do around you. Look for ways to do that, to be that salt. Jesus wanted us to go out into the world and make disciples, be an encouragement, be helpful. We're doing all this work for the kingdom. It's not for ourselves, so rely on the power of the kingdom. If you need guidance and you need something to just kind of jumpstart you, get into Scripture, read about it, be prayerful about it, and just see what it is that comes to mind. All right, I got to go finish up some chores so we can get to church. You guys have a great week. Until we see you again, stay salty.